It goes without saying, every country has a unique culture, and inside that country there may be many variations of that same culture. It's the way that people behave, what they eat, how they dress, what pets do they have, and what things they do in their free time. But with the process of globalization, there are now many things that are shared between many parts of the world, especially if it is digital content, which can be moved into many places without effort. Video games are an example of those. Maybe the whole world doesn't share the nostalgia of the early consoles or the bulky arcades machinery. Those were simply not accessible in poor countries back in the day. But the industry got better and made cheaper and more advanced products, eventually getting to the point that the average person in most places could afford a way to play. However, even though many countries may share the same product, that doesn't dictate how people will react to that. A game may be considered too violent for a certain public, all the while being considered child's play for another one. And certainly, in the case of the Brazilian public, there are many aspects of society that dictated which games got popular and which didn't. Back in the time of physical copies and nearly stagnant internet speed, only the lucky ones managed to get in the grace of people. And in this video, I want to dive in some of the most popular ones and what was the reason why they got so popular. Hello everyone, this is Najiboas, and as you may have noticed, I am a Brazilian. So you can bet some of these observations are out of personal experience. But of course, all on the while trying to give you as factual information as possible. So please do like and subscribe if you appreciate the effort, and let's hop right into it. Let's just say how it is. Brazilians are crazy about football. And yes, it's football. Your foot kicks the ball, so it's football. I don't know what that is. Therefore, the reason why football games are popular around here, it's already clear. It's just part of Brazilian lifestyle. To paint a picture, when you are a kid around here, it's a given that you will play this sport at some point. Be at school, be at the streets or an open field. And actually, any imaginable amount of space is flexible to play football in. You don't even need a ball, just something to kick. But in modern days, it's true that kids everywhere have been getting more quote-unquote indoor fun. And even then, the idea stays strong. Football will be played somehow, in this case with video games. But it's hard to say that there is a specific title that can be nominated as the most popular one. Because, as you may have noticed, in modern consoles, sports games usually have annual releases, with a new title coming to a series every now and then. Each coming with tweaks and improvements, yes, but making it difficult for the public to have attachment to a specific title as some of the other games in this list will have. However, there is one title that is for sure unique to Brazilian experience. Bomba Patch isn't actually the game itself, but a popular patch for past games that is updated to this day. Its main feature is the introduction of aspects of local football leagues such as the Brasileirão. That was a way for people to see and play as their favorite teams and athletes. Bomba Patch initially got popular in PlayStation 2, which is still, I believe, the most prominent console in Brazil. Many games that inspired me to begin this series are PS2 games, and the second one in this list is one of the most popular ones. Now I know what you're thinking. Resident Evil 4 was just popular in general, right? Yes, but the difference lies in how that happened in Brazil. So, this may be controversial for some, but the main reason why the PlayStation 2 became the most popular console around here was piracy. The console was relatively cheap, but it still wasn't affordable for most of the population a long time after its release. I actually only got to play one for the first time around 2012, but the advantage with piracy was that once you got your hands in a cracked console or managed to crack a normal one, you could save crazy amounts of money by getting pirated copies of games. The sheer amount of those copies was just insane. In almost any tech store at the time, you could find a game for the price of a snack. And guess what game was pretty much everywhere? Resident Evil 4 is a masterpiece. and that's independent of what nationality you are. The horror and the gameplay made it an immersive and astonishing experience for anyone. And it was simple. Besides some of the puzzles in the later parts of the game, you just had to walk forward and shoot people. That's important because as the original game didn't have a Portuguese translation, language-based gameplay would only make it harder for players that didn't speak English. But well, that was easily overcome with translation mods. Now, even if the insanely low price of the pirated copies wasn't enough for someone to manage to buy a console for themselves, they still could play in locadoras. Those were game shops in where you could pay a certain amount of money to play for a limited time. But the fun was unlimited though. Locadoras usually had copious amounts of games, and you can bet that any time of the day you could enter in one and see kids playing Resident Evil 4 and football games. Now, shifting from consoles to PCs, we have the next game on this list. And at this point you may just poke at me again and say, but Nash, now you're just listing common games. And yes, I am, but I want you to see the details that the game acquired when they got set in the tropical scenario of Brazil. You see, pasta is not the same in the rest of the world as it is in Italy, and sushi is not the same in the rest of the world as it is in Japan, but each iteration can be admired. So with CounterStrike, the aspect of late access was also true, meaning that in Brazil the popularity reached its peak way later than the rest of the world. In my opinion, that happened when the other countries were already playing Global Offensive and Call of Duty Black Ops 1. Computers, just as consoles, weren't something that the average person could afford, and even if they did, internet was slow, nearly stagnant. It took days to download the game, let alone play in a server that was usually placed in another country. However, that's when pirates come into place again. You see, cracked copies usually couldn't access online servers. That didn't matter because people around here usually play in LAN connections. Just gather around a bunch of friends and there you have it, a LAN party for the ages. And worry not if you didn't have a computer yourself. Just like the locadoras with the consoles, the LAN houses were places that had multiple computers already connected into a network. The clients of those LAN houses were usually only people that did things like printing documents and researching subjects for a school project. But they would come around only sporadically, and the owner of the establishment kinda needed a way to make regular clients to profit. The solution was swift. Just install cracked copies of CounterStrike and other games in those computers, and a swarm of kids and teens would be piling up at your doors in every hour of the day. And up until now, the CounterStrike franchise is beloved among the Brazilian community, and we even managed to spawn some of the greatest players in the competitive scene. The simple gameplay and objective makes a perfect target for grinding, and as I believe, most Brazilians are naturally hard workers, so that gave the game an instant appeal. And no jokes about guns and real around here, okay? You could say that the main point in this video was to establish a relationship between the gaming scenarios in Brazil with the rest of the world. But there are many more games that I still want to talk about, and definitely titles that are so specific to Brazilian experience that you couldn't get this information from an outsider. That's why I decided to make a series in the first place. And again, this commentary is not meant to be the general truth for everybody. Some other Brazilian may just come along and say the story was different, but I highly believe this represents the majority of people around here. That being said, for sure in future videos I plan to do a better job at researching and presenting those informations. So again, please do leave a like if you appreciate the effort. Thank you and see you in the next one.